If you're looking for a new full-size pickup truck and you think you might be ready to move on from the V8, be it gas or diesel, you have a lot of options in today's auto industry. To my right is the all-electric Ford F-150 LIghtning for those of you who are ready to dive into the worlds of EVs. And for those of you who aren't, there's the Toyota Tundra, which uses a hybrid powertrain. Let's take a closer look at both of these trucks to see how they compare. The interesting thing to note about these two trucks is that they're actually within $5,000 of each other. This Tundra Platinum with the TRD off-road package sits at $75,000, while this F-150 LIghtning is a smidge under 80 grand, so they're very comparable trucks. Now, under the hoods of these two trucks, we're gonna find very different things. In the F-150 LIghtning, it's 14.1 cubic feet of storage, and in the Toyota Tundra, it's a 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6 hybrid powertrain. This engine makes 437 horsepower and 583 pound-feet of torque. The F-150 LIghtning uses two electric motors paired with a 132 kilowatt-hour battery pack that combine to make 452 horsepower and 775 pound-feet of torque. So the F-150 LIghtning does win in the power department. The Tundra is also rated to return 20 miles per gallon combined, which is pretty good for a full-size pickup truck, although the hybrid powertrain is more used for increased power than increased efficiency. Around back, we can start to notice some of the differences between these two trucks. The F-150 LIghtning is available exclusively as a crew cab with a 5.5-foot bed. The Tundra can be had in double cab or crew cab with a 5.5 or 6.5-foot bed. This is a crew cab with a 6.5-foot bed, so this is a really big beast of a truck. One of the most common jobs a pickup truck will have to do is tow, and for the F-150 LIghtning with the extended range battery pack like this one, it starts at a 7,700 pound towing capacity. If you get the max tow package, that raises the capacity to 10,000 pounds. In contrast, the Tundra is rated up to 12,000 pounds when properly equipped. This Tundra Platinum is also equipped with the TRD off-road package, which means you get some off-road features like all-terrain tires, Bilstein shocks, a locking rear differential, and some off-road drive modes. But for driving around a muddy field, which is the most off-roading trucks will probably do in their life, the F-150 LIghtning can also handle that very easily. But if you are going to be hitting the trail, the Tundra definitely has more features available. Being the Platinum trim level, this Tundra does have some luxury features like heated and cooled rear seats, heated steering wheel, a panoramic sunroof, and dynamic turn signals around front, which look very snazzy. And you also get them around back. And while the LIghtning doesn't have those snazzy turn signals, it does have this very nice light bar around front and around back, as well as heated rear seats, heated and cooled front seats, a heated steering wheel, a panoramic sunroof, and a very nice looking infotainment system. The Tundra's more traditional design also means it has a more traditional four-wheel drive system with 2 high, 4 high, and 4 low capabilities. The F-150 LIghtning with its dual motor setup is really just an all-wheel drive vehicle, so you won't be able to just use the rear wheels or get into a low range gear. But with 775 pound-feet of torque available instantly, you shouldn't be that worried. And this F-150 LIghtning with the extended range battery pack is rated to about 320 miles of all-electric driving, which I have definitely seen in optimal conditions, although colder weather does affect the range, as will towing. But towing affects the range on all vehicles, so it's not surprising that it affects it on an EV. All right, driving the Ford F-150 LIghtning. God, I love this truck. I've spent a week living with 4 different versions of the Ford F-150, the hybrid, the Raptor R, and the LIghtning, and the LIghtning is definitely my favorite. I think it's just the best application of the driving dynamics in a Ford F-150. First off, it feels the quickest because you get all 775 pound-feet of torque instantly. Even though the Raptor R is quicker on paper, I think this one feels faster. And then it's just so comfortable in here, and that's what I really want in a full-size pickup truck. These seats are super comfortable. The steering wheel is really nice to grip, and I love how large it is. That's one thing I really love about the F-150 in general. Its steering wheel is noticeably bigger than something like a Chevy Silverado, or even I think in the Tundra, and it feels substantial and appropriate for a full-size pickup truck. The suspension is also really softly sprung. I was super surprised because this does have a 131 kilowatt-hour battery pack. I thought it was gonna be, you know, a little bit of a harsher ride because that is so much weight to carry around and on top of a full-size pickup truck body and frame, but it's super soft, super supple, definitely nicer riding than the Toyota Tundra that I have with the TRD off-road package. Now, I have driven a Toyota Sequoia Platinum with the air suspension, which you can't get when you get the TRD off-road package, and that also rides very well. I'd say it's comparable to this Ford F-150 Lightning, but I think in its TRD off-road form, it doesn't ride as well because it is more off-road oriented, and so I much prefer the ride on this F-150 Lightning. And this cabin is super spacious as well. I think the windshield feels a lot taller than the one in the Tundra, and certainly the way these windows dip as they get towards the A-pillar makes it feel a little more airy inside this cabin. The panoramic sunroof is very nice, but the Tundra has that as well, and it's overall just a very comfortable and easy to use cabin. I think all of the buttons on the steering wheel are super easy to press, partially because they are so big, and the steering wheel, the infotainment system, while it sometimes is a little laggy to use, it's relatively simple to control. You have a physical dial for your volume, and so the only thing you'll regularly have to adjust is the temperature or your heated and cooled seat functions, and they're not the smoothest because it is a little slow again, but other than that, it's pretty easy to live with this screen. Driving the Toyota Tundra now and jumping into this vehicle after driving the F-150 Lightning, the first thing I notice in terms of driving dynamics is the harsher ride, and that's mostly due to the TRD off-road package that this truck has, meaning it has the Bilstein shocks that are tuned for off-road capability versus on-road comfort. I also noticed the steering wheel isn't quite as soft. You know, this is something you're going to be touching all the time, and it's definitely soft enough. It's not rough in any way, but the F-150 Lightning had a particularly nice steering wheel that really jumped out to me. Other than that, I do prefer a lot of things in this Toyota Tundra's cabin over the F-150 Lightning. I love this infotainment system. It's a 14-inch landscape mounted screen, which I think is a little better implementation of a screen than portrait style screen. It has full screen Apple CarPlay, which looks really good up there, and then physical controls for all of your climate controls. And I also think the infotainment system in general is quicker than in the Lightning. I also love that you have a digital rear view mirror. That's super handy. The gauge cluster I don't love. It's not as good as the one in the F-150 Lightning, but this also does have a massive heads-up display, which is nice. The cabin overall feels a little smaller than in the Lightning, and I've noticed this across the board with F-150s versus Tundras. The Tundras just feel a little less spacious. They're obviously still very big vehicles, but I think they feel a little less spacious than the Lightning. Now, while the Tundra doesn't have instant torque like the Lightning, it still is pretty quick, and when you put your foot down, you get a kick of instant torque from the electric motor, and then the 3.5 liter twin turbo V6 kicks in, and the Tundra really does shoot off the line. The electric motor isn't that powerful in this vehicle, well, especially for how heavy this truck is, so it doesn't provide a lot of acceleration, but when you're coasting or when you're decelerating or when you're just getting off the line and you don't give it that much throttle, it will stay in EV mode, which is kind of cool to be driving a full-size pickup truck in EV mode. Obviously the Lightning is like that all the time, but then the 3.5 liter twin turbo V6 kicks on and you're driving like a normal hybrid. Now, you're supposed to be getting about 20 miles per gallon combined in the 4x4 like this one is. I've been averaging closer to 18 miles per gallon in mostly highway driving. It is pretty cold outside, but that's just not quite as impressive as Toyota claims. When I had the Toyota Sequoia Platinum with the identical powertrain, I averaged 18.7 mpg across 1,100 miles. So this is pretty consistent to what I got in that vehicle too. So while Toyota claims 20 mpg or more, I think you're gonna see closer to 18, which is still pretty good for a full-size pickup truck. So the engine is off right now as we are at a stop, and now we are pulling away in electric mode, and only electric, gas engine kicks on. So you really only make it, depending on how hard you push the throttle, to like 5-10 miles an hour before the gas engine kicks on. Because again, this isn't a very powerful electric motor. It really can't move this truck that quickly by itself. But then when you get some open road and you can put your foot down, it is such a smooth powertrain. I do really like that about this powertrain. You don't really get surges of power, which you can sometimes get in hybrid systems. I'm kind of thinking of Volvo right now. When you put your foot down, the engine will roar to life, and it, in concert with the electric motor, will just push this truck forward. It's really refined, and I also love the sound of this iForce Max powertrain. It's not a V8, obviously, but it sounds like one. And while that comes from the speakers and pumped in audio, it's the best application of such a system I've ever experienced, and it really does sound like you're driving a V8. And because this engine is also so powerful, it also feels like you're driving a V8. That is something you don't get in the F-150 Lightning, obviously, because it is an EV. It is silent upon acceleration. So when you put your foot down, the sound is pretty cool, and if you're not willing to depart with that, you don't have to worry about missing out on that in the Toyota Tundra. Even though it is a hybrid and a V6 instead of a V8, it still gives you that audio experience that you're going to be looking for. So on the whole, I think the interior controls of the Tundra are easier to use while driving. The screen is quicker to respond. There's a lot of physical controls. There's also a lot of switches to turn on like your camera, your locking rear differential, or turn off your traction control. But there are other elements of the F-150's interior, like its really comfortable seats and steering wheel and its gauge cluster, that I prefer. So that was the Toyota Tundra with the iForce Max powertrain and the Ford F-150 Lightning. While the Tundra had more capabilities on paper, I prefer the on-road driving dynamics of the F-150 Lightning, but you're not going to go wrong with either of these trucks. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.